afternoon, good morning, good evening, no matter what time of day it is where you're watching us, we want to welcome you to this week's episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network. As always, this is presented by CVC Success Group, and it will involve usually myself and members of my team. Today, two of our usual people are one's in the Pocono Mountains enjoying Thanksgiving with his family at a water park, and another one is in Branson, Missouri. Why in the world you go to Branson? But hey, that seems to be a popular place if you live out there in the Midwest. So anyway, just like every week, we want to bring you a topic of interest and something that can give you thought processes of moving forward. And this week is no different because we're going to talk about something that some people need to do, some people may think about doing, and some may be scared to death to do what we're talking about today. And that is rebranding your company. And as we do this, we actually have three different people on here, myself, Cheryl, and our guest today, Mike Gidich, that have all gone through rebrands of companies and for different reasons. But our guest today is a gentleman, and he comes out of Ohio, and his name is Mike Gidich. And to be honest with you, a year ago, I spoke at Tommy Mello's vertical track event. And Mike's one of those guys that was just kind of in the room back there, kind of quiet. Nobody knew who he was. And this year, Tommy Mello brought Mike up on the stage and had Mike talk about the rebranding he had done with his company, and had changed the name of this to Honey Dudes from his MBG Maintenance Services, Honey Dudes Handyman Service. So what we're going to do is we want to talk with Mike today about what caused him to make this decision, what all was involved in this rebranding that he went through and everything else. So Mike, first of all, we appreciate taking your time out of a busy Friday afternoon. I mean, it's Black Friday and everybody's either maybe they're working like we are, or probably they're out at the nearest Walmart or some electronics store or a mall reaping up those Black Friday specials. So, hey, you may be catching us on the replay, which is excellent. And if you're live, we really appreciate you being here with us today. So, Mike, let's start off. What got you into rebranding a company that you had an emotional attachment to? Because MBG is your initials and you've changed everything here. So, let's start out with what excited you? What made you think that I need to rebrand MBG and turn it into Honey Dudes?
Well, Jerry, first, thanks for having me on here. It's pretty humbling, actually, to be on your show. It's crazy to think from a year ago, but I went to Vertical Track a little over a year ago and got with Dan Antonelli and just started talking to him. He was actually setting up his booth. He wasn't even ready. The show hadn't started, and we started talking. I showed him my card and just asked him to give me a quick assessment. And within probably 2 seconds, he threw my card down and said, "I can't do anything with this. It's terrible. Letters are terrible." And that's hard because my aunt drew my logo for me and had my dad's initials in the toolbox and some different things that were personal to me. And it was a hard pill to swallow that those personal things to me don't mean anything to anyone else, and it has nothing to do with your brand or your company. So I thought about it for a couple of days when we got back. In the meantime, kind of got a little bit of a sign. One of our customers called, elderly woman, said she had a really hard time remembering whether it was us or not, and had a company come out who didn't say they were us, didn't say they weren't. She couldn't remember the initials and the name completely, and she got terrible service. So that was kind of the final decision I needed, and we got with Dan and started the process.
So, did Dan hurt your feelings when he told you all this?
For probably about 5 minutes, yes, he did. But I really thought about it from a logistical standpoint. And I think being at Vertical Track and listening to you and the other speakers of, this is business. You got to take emotion out of it and you got to really make good, sound decisions. When I really thought about it, I looked at it and I'm like, our brand does suck. It's a plain truck. And I think because I was a handyman service and that's fairly new to people, and I had a brand on my truck, which is uncommon here in the Cleveland area, that I felt like I had a brand. I realize I did not. So
This is something I often advise a client, and this is what they say, but everybody knows who we are. And I try to tell them, no, everybody doesn't know who you are. There's a few customers that may know who you are, but everybody doesn't know who you are. And you've got a very plain name or a very poor logo, or your trucks don't really have the right message on them or anything else. So yeah, people face this with a lot of fear. So Cheryl, what would be the first question you would ask Mike today about this rebranding?
Mike, what do you think the biggest benefit you have seen out of it? I know there's been a lot. What has been the thing, if you had to tell somebody the biggest benefit was whatever?
Wow, that's a great question. I'll use the same answer, but two-part, and it's the value that was built with our team and our clients. It's showing our team really what we're trying to do here, and I think it shows them that we put value into them and that we want to see not only the company be successful, but I do want to see each one of them be successful and do things they could have never imagined. And our clients, when you pull in the driveway, there's just no question. Even clients that loved us prior to the rebrand, it's very different, their emotions now, and love us that much more. So
Good.
Okay. So I just posted a link to a previous interview we did with Dan Antonelli. Mike, I don't know, but we actually interviewed Dan a few months ago about what he does, rebranding. And the funny thing is, my niche I work with is primarily chimney service. And he told us something that day that the chimney sweep company was one of the first ones that he ever got involved with the rebrand. So first of all, you had to come up with this new concept, which is honeydews and all that. So Dan was instrumental in this. What all did Dan and his people do for you to help you build this rebrand?
well, that's easy. They did everything. They sent me this questionnaire, and I'm like, holy Jesus, am I interviewing for a job here? But looking at it now in totality, it's so amazing. They get to know your team and what's important to you. They brought a few little things over that kind of stuck out to some of our clients, like the light blue shadowing and stuff. For the most part, obviously, everything is brand new. There's nothing about this that our old brand that lives in this. But they really got to know who we were as a company and as a team and what we're looking for. And they took it from there. I didn't have to do really much of anything, and which is good, because I believe that the more choices and the more they give you, that you're just going to muddy the waters. And they're a great team. They know what they're doing. And if you look at our brand behind me here, I mean, that's amazing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So Cheryl, what will be your next question? And while you're doing this, Mike, that's okay, I'm going to post your website URL up here. So people on that URL, they can see your truck designs, they can see your logos, all of that type of stuff. So I'm presuming that the website company had to work closely with Dan doing the concepts and your wrap companies and everything else that was involved in this. Am I correct?
Yeah, to the clothing, to the cards. I mean, Dan and his team lay out the artwork so perfect and such a good design that it's easy to pick up. But they all have to work closely with his team to just make that brand be exactly what it was designed to be.
Gotcha. So Cheryl, go ahead with your next question. I kind of overrode you there, and I apologize, but I wanted to get that website up where people could see that.
No problem. I know you haven't had the new brand that long, but have you noticed that there's a targeting of a different demographic going on than what you had prior?
Yeah, we do. We're starting to. So it's been about a little over 4 months now since we made the initial launch, and that's a little bit of a process. All the trucks can't get wrapped in one day and things like that. So it's been about 4 months since we started that and got everything rolling. It seems like our leads now are starting to be more solidified leads and people that are a little more serious about hiring us, where our closing rates are going up, and I think it really builds value. They know it almost seems like they know what they're getting when they call us. It's not just, oh, I'm going to call this guy in a truck and, get whatever and ask for a $20 rate. They know when they call that we're a legitimate company and we're going to provide real value. And so.
Yeah. So, Mike, you know, one of the things I admire you for is you sat in a seminar and you listened, and a lot of people do that, but you started implementing this, I presume, probably before you even left that vertical track event. Am I correct? Did you start implementing while you were sitting in the room there?
Yeah, I mean, we started. I took notes and started implementing a lot before we left that seminar. And as you know, in business, you got to take action and just make a decision and go for it. Otherwise, nothing's going to change. So, and with the rebrand, I'm so glad I did. It's crazy what it does. Our reviews are more heartfelt. Like I said, our team, it's amazing. Gets me excited every day to see it and start seeing it more and more and more and more and more recognizable.
Yeah, and that's what but again, this is what I truly admire. You left there and you implemented till a year later, you go back to the Freedom event just a few weeks ago, and Tommy Mello knows what you're doing, and he tells you, Mike, I want you to come up on the stage. What was your thought whenever Tommy said, come up on the stage? Because let's face it, there was a lot of great speakers down there in Orlando on the stage. Did you feel humbled at that point? Did you feel energized?
I mean, getting with Dan on that, and it was incredibly humbling to be amongst some of the greats on that stage. Are insane because I don't feel like I've really done anything special. So all we did is just commit to the process and trusted Tommy's process in a lot of things, and got in front of a lot of the great speakers and just implemented those things. But incredibly humbling to be there and even here, talking to you and to be a part of that process. And I hope that my story is relatable to people. I think that's maybe where where I can be a help to somebody. Very relatable. I didn't have the money for this rebrand. I had to figure it out, and Dan's team makes that easy. They don't just ask for all the capital up front. It happens in sections as your rebrand happens, which is amazing. So you can figure it out one step to the next over the course. Our rebrand took about 8 months in total by the time we signed on to things started happening and all that. So plenty of time to figure it out. But yeah, very honored to be able to be on that stage and share my story. It's crazy to me. It's almost surreal still to this point. So,
Well, you did very good. Like I said, I've been on a lot of stages and you did a very good job. Be proud of what you do. Cheryl, what would be the next question that would come to your mind?
So, were there any challenges during the execution, or did it go extremely smooth? And if there were, what were they?
I think the challenges came once the rebrand was set. As far as the process of getting it done to the end of when you get your final artwork, that part was a lot easier than I thought. A couple things, even though the dance team, they do an amazing job of prepping you for what's coming and how to do everything. I don't think you realize about calling all your clients and updating them. We have a database of several thousand people, and getting the word out. Like I said, they give you mailers and all kinds of things. It just takes a few weeks for it really to settle in and to start to take off. So not too big of a challenge, just things you don't think about. But I would be glad to help anybody listening or that watches this that has any questions on the process and what I would have done differently. I'd be glad to help them, which isn't much, just a few little things getting ahead of our clients.
Yeah, I don't know who Facebook user is, but it says it's never about you. It's about the client and what you do to help them and make it easy to remember what you did for them. So if I make the following statement, would you agree that Dan was the man to really help you guide through this whole process? Was he the most important incremental person to assist you?
His team was, yes. No, Dan's great. I love Dan to death, but no, they're just their team in whole. They have it nailed from step one all the way through, and you have to trust the process. And I think as business owners, we're doing it. We're creating these businesses, and as you know, it's sometimes you don't want to hear what you don't want to hear, but you have to just trust the process and listen and just absorb it and trust it, and it works.
Yeah, and I just got a message, Cheryl. That was Chuck Roydhouse that made that statement a while ago. So, Cheryl, let's change the subject a little bit, because sometimes you may be forced into a rebrand. Okay, and this is a story that I'm going to let Cheryl tell you, because she owns a company by the name of IBD Outdoor Rooms that originally started as Islands by Design. But due to certain things that happened in our personal life, Cheryl had to rebrand this company because she bought that company from me. Even though we're married, we have a premarital agreement. We are individuals in the state of North Carolina. So, Cheryl, you want to share your story about why a rebrand was required for your company?
Well, everybody that knows us knows what went down. But the main thing is the court system would not let me retain the name, anything. I had to have a new phone number. I had to have a new address. Everything had to change. I was lucky enough to keep the letters IBD, which stood for, at that time, Islands by Design, which stands for now Innovative Backyard Design. But that was the only thing that saved us and made it a lot easier. But still, like Mike was talking about, that's that period of time that nobody knows you. There's that one gap right there. And then even still, we have people calling, and that was back in 2010. Every now and then I'll get this call, somebody saying, I found you. And I'm thinking, I thought we covered all our bases. But I'll tell you right now, Mike, there's somebody hanging out there that doesn't know, and they'll just trip across you one day in the future. The hardest thing for us was having to change the phone number. So that was where I think Jerry would agree. I think that was probably the worst thing in the branding that we had to do.
Yeah. And even though I own the company, Mike, she was more instrumental in the success of that company. So, what was happening here to give people a little more background into this? Like I said, back in 2010, I had to declare personal bankruptcy and start all over again. So, I sold her IBD, which is Islands by Design, sold it to her. She wrote a check for it, but we had to defend that in federal bankruptcy court and for at a later time. So there was no way that she could carry on with the same name or anything else because I couldn't sell her the corporation. I couldn't sell her the brand. I could only sell her the assets. So she was forced into that. In fact, first book I ever wrote, Chaos to Reinvention, that'll kind of tell you about the story of what we went through in those days. So that's a rebranding of it also. Hey, there you go. Hey man, hold that back up a minute, Mike. Say, great, you got that. That's good. I gave you that down. I hope. Did you buy that, or did I give you that down in Orlando?
You gave that to me actually a vertical track last year.
Fantastic. That's what I love to hear. But that was a rebrand of necessity. And if we look at CVC, which is my company today, we started out as chimney and venting consultants. But what happened was we transitioned into coaching from being a consulting company, and then we changed it to CVC coaching. Then, as we got other people involved, Cheryl started working in the business. Brandy came into it. Bob Wise, now Josh Kelly. We changed it again to CVC Success Group. But and I'm going to ask this question. I presume that you're in your old company, MBG Maintenance Services. If I were to look for that through Google and a search engine, I'm probably going to end up on Honeydude's website, I'm presuming. Is that correct?
Yeah, they do a great job making sure that all your old information is funneled. They changed our GMB right over. There was no lag in that. So you might see some of our Google reviews that say MDG maintenance and things like that. But quickly that gets snuffed out. I think what Cheryl was saying is you'd be surprised at the people that don't know you. We had someone stop in our office the other day. They lived 3 blocks from our offices here, and they said, "Where'd you guys come from? We didn't even know anything like this was here." And we've had a sign, we've had trucks out front. Nothing has changed other than the brand. So it's crazy how people don't know you or how you think that they, maybe you think they do, but they don't.
Would you say today that your trucks are more visible when they go down the highway than they were before?
I can 150% tell you that. Even my own family members, it's like, "Oh, how many more trucks did you guys add?" I've added none. In fact, we brought less trucks over, as I explained to you when we were in the room earlier, that I wanted to make sure that we have all new trucks on the road and got rid of some of our older fleet. So it's crazy.
Well, you mentioned something, and person that made a comment on here, and Chuck, you can add into this if you'd like to. But Chuck Woodhouse, whenever I started working with him as a coach many, many years ago, one of the things he had white vans, and what he did was he rebranded his vans to purple because he lives in the Baltimore, Washington market area, and he's a big Baltimore Ravens fan. So one of Chuck's thoughts was, hey, going down the road, you see white vans every day, but you don't see purple ones every day. In fact, he got known as, the purple guy, Mr. Purple, and other things. So, Chuck, if you got anything to add into that, feel free to type it in because you've gone through a rebrand there in the chimney service business you had some years ago and changed to that purple brand. So, Cheryl, any other questions you got for Mike today?
Not really a question, just a statement. I think Mike will agree that it doesn't matter what you have to do to get the rebranding. Like you just changed the name and went that way. I had to change completely. Jerry flipped 3 times. If you need to change that brand, don't sit on it. And once you get the money that you can afford to do it, go ahead and press it through. Would you agree?
Yeah, well, the thing, I 100% agree. I think the longer you wait, the harder it gets. I can't imagine, like, if you hear Tommy talking about rebranding, I think it was 10 million or something crazy. I have no idea how they did that. I know they kept their name, so there was wasn't as big of a change, but rebrand early as possible. The earlier, the better, the easier, before you start gaining any sort of steam, or just it's 100% easier. It's less trucks to do, less everything. So
before you did this, Mike, did you feel everybody in your market area knew who you were?
that's why I was laughing earlier. 100%. I'm like, we're doing it. We're a handyman service. No other handyman service around us has a name on the truck. Everybody knows us, and nobody knew us, and not at all. And they still don't. I mean, we're getting there. It's crazy how it's taken off. Like I said, it's exciting to see how many more people recognize us, know us, how quick. And now people are like, oh, it's the honey dudes. It's the honey dudes. And they call us by name, and we name the bear and the bee. So it's exciting, but I can't wait to see what the next year brings with that. And I think branding, is going to be super important in this next year, as I think we're going to have to get back to a lot of organic stuff and things like that. So I think having a good brand is going to be really important.
Yeah, and when you talk about everybody knows who we are, I can still remember the time, and I had a fireplace shop, Harsh Store, and the name of it was the Fireplace Patio and Grill. And my chimney service business was the Chimney Doctor Incorporated. So people would come into our store, and we would commonly ask them a question when they were purchasing. Have you ever had the chimney swept, inspected, or anything? And they would tell us, hey, this company came out called the Chimney Doctor. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of them or not, but I was the owner of both, and most people did not tie our retail business into our service business. It was really amazing. But like I said, it's the things you do. So if you had it to do over again and you were sitting in that vertical track you were last year, would you repeat your process?
100%. I would do it again 10 times over every day. It's a no-brainer. And I think a lot of people, as you mentioned earlier, they sit on it and they wonder, and they go to these conferences. And like I said, the biggest thing I've learned is you've got to take action, because nothing's going to happen if you do nothing.
That's exactly right. If you don't take action, that's what I admire. A lot of times that's what I talk about. People, they sit there, they get a great idea, but one of the biggest failures in businesses is FTI, which is failure to implement. You got a great idea and it just sits there and it withers and it dies. So Cheryl, anything else you would add in for today's broadcast?
Just, if you're sitting out there watching this and you've got a company that's not getting anywhere. I know I had a wallpaper installation company many years ago, and I call it INSCO, stood for Installation Company. You want to know how fast that one got to change?
Yeah,
that was the fastest rebrand I've ever seen.
Yeah, and Cheryl, I forgot about that. But what did we change the name of that one to Wall Coverings Incorporated? Is my memory serving me correct on that?
Yeah.
So it's amazing, Mike. Hey, I didn't even think about this before we actually just about went on the air, but all the times that we have rebranded her business, my business, and until she brought that up, I forgot about the wallpaper business she had, where we rebranded it to Wall Coverings Incorporated, because it's like when I got to know her, it's like, what the hell does INSCO stand? What does it stand for again, Cheryl?
Stood for installation company. The lawyer wanted to know that day, and that was what rolled right off the top. And that's how it got there, and that's how it left. Just about that. Yes.
So, Mike, before we hang up today, is there any additional words of wisdom you would throw out there at our listeners?
No, just like we talked about, take action and start moving forward. That's the only way to get going with things. And I would be happy if anybody wanted to reach out. You can share my cell phone number on the rebrand process. But the biggest thing I can tell you is trust the process, especially if you go with Dan and his team. They know what they're doing. Just trust the process.
Yeah, and like I said, if you want to hear Dan talk about it, I posted the link earlier in the comment bar with the interview we did with Dan a few months ago. It will go through. I hope that Dan gave you a free copy of his book after you did all this, right?
Yeah, I think I might be signed on to help them now get some things going. I think I'm going to be pretty good at these designs for them. But no, it's awesome, Jerry. I really appreciate you and Cheryl having me on. This is so humbling and kind of surreal to me that I'm sitting here talking about this. It's crazy because a year ago is not that long. And I think maybe that's something that people could bite into too, that are thinking about, how do I become 300 million? Well, I'm right where they are, and maybe in some of the problems they're having. And it's crazy how fast everything goes when you start taking that action.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, Mike, it's an honor to have you on with us today. It's an honor. The other day when I sent you that message, you want to be on here, and you told me, I said, hey, man, I'd love to be it. I was in your class last year, and it made so much difference to me. So, hey, that was kind of humbling to me, too. So thanks for taking your time out of a Black Friday and joining us today. And I appreciate your offer. And if somebody reaches out and wants to know, I'll put them in touch with you. I'll send them your email address so they're not just calling you out of the blue. How's that sound?
That sounds great. Thank you so much. And you guys have a great day. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys today.
You got it, brother. And we appreciate you tuning in to us today, whether you're live or on the replay. It means a tremendous amount. I want you to know it's an honor, it's a privilege, and it's a pleasure. And with that, we're going to wish every one of you a fantastic weekend ahead and a great week next week. And we'll see you next Friday on the next episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network.